Hello and welcome to this Alumni Extra, where we continue a discussion already started through another initiative in the Alumni Programme. This Alumni Extra follows on from the recent cybersecurity webinar presented by Associate Professor Valipuram Muthu Kumarasamy, or Muthu for short. Those of you who joined us for that webinar or who have watched the recording might recall that there were a number of questions we were unable to answer in the timeframe. So today we have a chance to discuss Muthu's thoughts on some of those. So thank you, Muthu, for joining us again to continue this discussion.
Thank you, Jo. Great to be here.
And thank you also to those people who posed these questions during the webinar. When we looked at the questions, we were able to group them into themes for today's discussion. So let's start with personal security for computers. So quite a few people were concerned about that personal security aspect. Breaches of security on personal devices and the individual information they store can have significant impacts on individuals financially and emotionally, but also on productivity in their lives. Do you have any general advice or recommend any general courses that people can learn more about if they want to protect themselves?
Sure. Thank you. It's a lovely question, and most of the time people ask that as well. I can say at different layers, depending on whether you are an individual or SMEs or big business or government organizations, it can differ. For example, if it's a corporate body, government organization, there are standards to follow. You need to follow, for example, the ISO 27100. That gives a systematic review of the information security management practices. Then you can go through that. Or the NIST cybersecurity framework that basically tells you the steps to be followed. In the presentation we did as well. First identify your assets, values, then detect any adversaries activities, then respond to that, recover from any incident happening, and then that goes on cycle. But other than that, individuals and SMEs, they cannot afford to enhance their knowledge up to that level. At the government websites like cyber.gov.au, cyber.gov.au, that provides information for individuals, SMEs, families, large organizations as well. They have different sections. That's a very good piece of information. On top of that, every country has a CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team. Mm-hmm. And here we have something called OSCERT. The website is auscert.org.au, oscert.org.au. They do have annual symposiums as well, but that website gives alerts and what's happening, some information. They do have membership as well, so the alerts can be sent to you directly as and when it happens. And on top of that, they have other services available as well. The Australia's Cybersecurity Strategy 2020, that's a small document, the government document, that gives an overview of the roadmap, how it happens, and what we are doing here. In addition, in general, what I can say is developing some awareness. That will help a lot. Awareness is the key. Last time also we discussed it. And then practicing cyber hygiene. Like anything, practice makes you perfect. Basic cyber hygiene strategies, if you can practice and then implement it, that will be good. The third, if I take the top three, the third one is developing some basic skill set. It doesn't come overnight, but if you have a interest towards that, that can take you a long way. Basically, you can judge yourself as well what's happening. Hope that answers the question, but I'm happy to elaborate further if needed, please.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and some things there that definitely people can go and look at. I guess the first step for most people when they're looking for a security system for their computer is to go to the local IT store and look for one of the kind of packages of security systems for computers, and some of those have got pretty big price tags attached to them. So if I wanted to protect myself and I wanted to go down that path, what kind of things should I be looking for on those boxes before I choose one?
Okay, this is again a good question, and marketing tactics are also coming in. So I would say first you identify your needs, what is needed for you. In terms of security, to find the needs, you need to see the risk involved in that. So it goes back to the risk analysis you need to carry out. You need to do an audit and see what systems needs update and what kind of access control I need and who could be the adversaries and what I could lose. Is it the data I could lose, or is someone could watch me, my activities, that kind of thing. So a bit more awareness coming up and identify the needs. Everyone's needs are different. The same thing with the cybersecurity needs as well. And most of the time where the attack happens through the implementation gaps, you can have a wonderful gold standard product, but if it's not implemented, that is the weakness. So you need to look for that, the coupling, the weakness point there. Have a risk management strategy all the time. That is, in general terms, business continuity plan and the disaster recovery plan. Anything can happen. You can fall sick. There can be an accident happening unexpectedly. Same thing with cyber as well. So what's your plan for that? Be prepared, and that will be the key. Then on the risk, the mitigation strategies we discussed probably briefly in the presentation. What is your risk appetite? What can you accept? What do you want to avoid? What are the mitigation strategies you want to go? Or you want to transfer the risk somewhere else? The mitigation strategies are the ones which are going to tell what you need to buy from the shop or you need to buy as a service. That probably is the best. Basically, what it gives you is some controls. So the risk and what kind of controls you're going to put in place, and that tells you. If you expand further, you can say, what are the threats and vulnerabilities? That is, how often it's going to happen? What's the probability for that to happen? What would be the consequence? What's the cost of that happening? Then what's the price you want to pay? So there's a cost benefit analysis coming in. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I guess that with that, that's kind of applies to our computers as much as anything. The other thing that came up in the conversation at the webinar was around the Internet of Things. And the problem with that is that you don't get as much choice. If you don't buy a TV with it in, then you don't get the features you want. And, you can even buy fridges that sense what kind of products have been stored inside, keep shopping lists for you, allow you to online shop directly. There are some concerns, though, about internet connected fridges and other household appliances being targets for viruses because companies might be recycling code or not patching problems correctly. In your opinion, is the usability that comes with an Internet of Things worth the security risk that comes with it? Or is it, again, that risk appetite? Do we want to really risk it? And how do we get around it?
Oh, absolutely. You correctly said is the risk appetite, the risk tolerance comes to individual. I might be very comfortable to have an IoT fitted into my fridge, into my garage door, everywhere, but it may not be the same for someone else, for you, Joe, because it depends on what the risks are for you and what you can accommodate in that. Again, awareness is the key. If you are aware of it, you know how to manage it. There is a slippery surface. If I'm aware of it, I can manage it. So knowing that the risk involved in various IoT devices, that's wonderful. Even this question itself says that they know about the risk involved in that. So that's the best thing. And then what you need to pinpoint, what are the consequences if that happens? How do I manage it? Comes down to that. The other one is it's the basic cyber resilience. How do I build that resilience? Usability, security, privacy are the things we need to balance it. It's a balancing act. There's nothing called absolute security. if you don't want anything of that nature, then we need to be isolated, keep away from everything, nothing on the internet or something. But we are not in that mindset. So continuous balancing act and making a judgment call comes in. Another way is that once in a while I reflect, okay, what I have done in the last 12 months, what are the risky things, and which are the ones I managed very well, how did I do, and which ones were touch and go, I need to pay attention, how can I improve those things. Then that might give you, everyone's menu is different, so they need to have that set for them.
So personal awareness and personal resilience is just as important as the thing itself, I suppose, than that.
Well said. Yeah.
So the other topic I wanted to kind of just wander through at the moment is that topic of trust, and trust was mentioned several times during the webinar as being crucial, and you mentioned integrity as a key element in cybersecurity. Are we simply talking about trust in the effectiveness of the technological protections and maintaining the integrity of systems, or are there broader issues of integrity and trust, personal, political, institutional honesty and responsibility that are important in the cybersecurity landscape?
Okay. These technical terms can take different interpretations in different domains. CIA, we call it CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability as the fundamental characteristics of security. That's more on the technical side. But on the social side, they have different. Integrity has a different meaning. Trust has a different meaning. However, the trust aspect of it is built these days from the social trust, from the digital trust, from the public trust. So that is now digital trust is coming in a lot onto that, whether it's at the society level, at the family level, or individual level, or at the government level, the trust is coming in. Now, can the technology facilitate building the trust? Certainly, yes. And that is where we are coming in and enhancing the trust using the technology as well. So it is moving away from basic trust to the social trust aspect, to the governance aspect of it as well. The basic thing, trust, as I repeatedly say, is a very expensive commodity. And with greater level of trust, we can do more with less. So that's where it's coming in. The trust is so complicated. What is trust? Is it something you believe that you can rely on, or something that you have the confidence on? So that definition of trust varies depending on the context as well. Then if we take it to another level, trusted system. What is a trusted system? We call it, yeah, we trust that system. Systems that have chosen to fulfill certain task, a goal. Yes, that's a trusted system. They can fail, then we suffer the harm or the loss or the consequence of that. There's another one, say, trustworthy system. Is it trustworthy? That is different. That is a system where you have evidence that it will not fail. Over and over, they have given you the trust. So that becomes a trustworthy system. Now, we need to bring all that into a common social trust aspect of it. One element, one example I can say trust brought in by technology is the cryptocurrency, the blockchain aspect of it. We always had a central authority to hold that trust. That's the central bank or whatever, for example, for the currencies. But the cryptocurrencies took that trust away and brought the technological cryptographic trust into that. So we can bring this into contracts like smart contract to execute something, or payments, or obligations, or fulfilling some legal requirements. So that's a new area. People are discussing about it. I hope given some aspects of the trust for this question.
Yeah, and I guess the other aspect of that is trusting governments, because they're often the ones that are managing the key infrastructure for the internet. If you think about the NBN, but they're also the entities in which populations don't always have the level of trust. And when you think, I'm thinking back to when the COVID Safe app first came out and all of the conversations around government surveillance that went alongside that. How do you manage that piece with the reducing potential trust in governments, but also the responsibility of governments to manage the key infrastructure in our internet world?
You brought in the term, the responsibility, the trust. Yes, it goes hand in hand. I can say in terms of the COVID Save app, how they brought that up, how they built that trust is that they brought in new legislation for privacy. So that's where they said, okay, we'll take the responsibility. We give you a kind of legislative guarantee that how the information that we collect will be used. When it comes to this digital information, the data, the collection and the usage of it, storage of that. So all three were covered in that legislation as an example. Yeah. And it cut across everywhere when the data comes in, the collection aspect, storage and the analysis part of that. Then how it is managed well, what are the security mechanisms in place? If I go back to the COVID app, you said people were demanding, show us, give us the code, the source code for us to examine so that we can build the trust on that. Show us how the back end is built and where the data is stored, what mechanisms are in place so that some of the experts, for example, in the university's research lab, independent people can examine that and tell us, verify that, very good, that kind of thing. So this is a gradual building up the confidence on the system, independent audit and demonstration of that. And on top of that, the a rich conversation with the public, government, open conversation, a debate, then evolving from that, if there are any shortcomings, addressing that, that's way forward. And then demonstrating, for example, cybersecurity, the maturity level. There are different maturity levels and what level they're operating. There were recent government reports, the ATO, at what level they're operating, the health, what level they're operating. So that gives another confidence, awareness for me to see, okay, can I consent for my health data to be on the system or not? You knowingly make a decision. So that's, we are building the knowledge base and then contributing to that domain.
And I suppose the other kind of organisation where a lot of us put our trust is in the companies who hold our data, whether it's places that we shop or places that we work or any of those kind of companies. And there have been some pretty high profile security breaches in those spaces in recent years in some pretty large organisations. What are companies obligated to do if they do identify a security breach of data?
A few things. One is before the security breach happens, especially large companies, they have more responsibility to show what precautions they have taken and what action they have taken in collection, in storage and handling the data. So that comes beforehand. That's their responsibility. For example, a corner shop may have lesser responsibility. Organization like university, they have a lot more responsibility because they have the resources to take care of that. That's the first part. Second part is if a breach happened, that's more serious these days. After 2018, the Australian government has brought in mandatory data breach reporting requirement. That is, if a data breach happens, and basically if it's going to be harmful for individuals, as personal data is leaked or someone has accessed or organization has lost some of the personal data, then they are required by law to report to two places. One is to individuals. They need to report. There's a requirement what information to be provided to individual, and also this has to go to the OAIC, that's the, I think, Office of Australian Information Commission, that has to go as well. The sample is available on their website as well, oaic.gov.au. So that's mandatory requirement. This data breach has to be reported within 30 days of becoming aware of a data breach. Otherwise, the penalties are serious. It can be for small organizations, I think somewhere around $340,000 and up. For bigger organization, close to a couple of $1 million. So what happens now is there is a tendency to look, this may have happened, this may have happened, because they would like to be on the safe side by over-reporting. that's a balancing act again coming up. So it's a pretty good thing, and it is not easy to get away with data breach happening. It's you will see every other day on public news is coming up where the data breach has happened and what has happened and how many personal information are lost. It's being reported.
So you mentioned there that there are penalties for not reporting data breaches. Are there penalties in place for organisations who fail to take proper cybersecurity measures?
This is more there are two parts there. One is an organization has not taken proper measures and a data breach happened. Now they're in trouble, there's an evidence, then they are responsible for that. The other one is the organization has not taken steps, but nothing has happened. So it is like, I have not taken any insurance, I was driving and nothing has happened. The other one is, I didn't have an insurance, an accident happened. So there are two different cases. I think we dealt with the first case where the data breach happened and what's going to happen. The other one is there are requirements for, like any financial, suppose, credit card, if someone is able to collect credit card information, there is a requirement, what system they need to have. Similarly, if they are collecting personal information, there is a requirement that they have taken reasonable steps to protect that personal information. So that is a violation if they are not taken that step. And if somebody, for example, realize, hey, this organization is not really taking steps, appropriate steps, and there's going to be a big thing, a floodgate is going to open, they can report that, bring it to the attention of the media or law enforcement authorities, or can be a whistleblower for that. Or they might even contact the Office of Australian Information Commissioner and then say, because organizations are more worried about the reputational damage. Mm-hmm. So it may be that they don't know that this is happening. Businesses are more worried about losing trust. For example, financial institution, they try their level best not to lose the trust because it takes a long time. It's very costly to rebuild that trust part of it.
And for those organisations that store that kind of personal data or financial data, that's obviously very, very important. There have been recently a number of reports of guests logging into private meetings on Zoom, for example. They had a famous breach there. And one of our webinar participants suggested that a lecture they'd attended had some spammers interacting on a supposedly closed network. They're embarrassing for organisations and potentially dangerous, but they don't seem to have people too concerned, I guess, because it's just popping into a webinar rather than accessing their bank account or something like that. How do we encourage people and organisations, or should we even encourage people and organisations to care more about that kind of breach?
It's a very good example and a question. If I say the first part said that people were not taking it seriously, if we can investigate why, the mentality is that what's the consequence of that? I haven't lost anything. It's a fun. It's coming up. So they feel, yeah. So this is where we are coming in the risk evaluation. What are the consequences for you? It might be if it happens to you in my class, that's a reputational damage. The university will take it very seriously, and I'll have the obligation to report if it happens to the university. So similarly, it's every organization will have a different one. Individually, suppose I'm on a private Zoom meeting and something happened, then if that's a fun conversation, I may not take it seriously. But if it was a conversation, a serious conversation, I had some very valuable information exchange, then I'll have to take it seriously. I may have to report to the law enforcement authorities, and I may have to check all my cybersecurity, the protection mechanisms I have in place. So that's the discussion among the public, rich discussion about what the threats are, what the consequences, potential consequences. That goes back to the individuals to make a judgment call. Okay, what can I do? What is in it? So coming back, awareness, sharing information with others, and reporting. Number of things the government encourages institutions. If a cyber incident happens, please report that, because that will help not only them, but other people as well, the similar organization, other stakeholders. So the knowledge and conversation, awareness, preparedness, all that is coming in here. Coming back to the question, what should I do if I see a character moving in my social conversation? That's a judgment call.
Mm. And I guess in terms of organisations preparing people to work in the cyber environment, many organisations are introducing a range of mandatory measures to enhance security. So here at Griffiths, for example, we do mandatory cybersecurity training. I think it's annually. And there are other things around like multi-factor authentication for systems access kind of thing. One of our alumni in the webinar suggested that multi-factor authentication might be a weak link. Do you have any opinion on that? And is there a more secure way to protect access, or is that still industry best practice?
Okay, it's a good question. You are right. Most of the organizations, they are taking precaution and making mandatory training, and then some procedures to be followed, like multi-factor authentication. That is true. On a serious note, the question is multi-factor authentication a better one? My opinion is yes, certainly it is better than a simple username password, definitely, because it's a two-factor authentication. Can we have even a better system than that? Yes, but that has a cost on it as well. Are you prepared to go for that? Are you in that? So it's a risk analysis. It's a business decision one has to make. Do I want to go for the next one, or I try to absorb this level of risk is a thing. Can I go for biometric authentication? Yes. Basically, the authentication comes into three parts. I mean, what you know, and what you have, and what you are. What you know is a password you know, and what you have is your mobile phone or token, and what you are is your biometric. These are the three things we use. Then there's a new era coming in now, moving into zero trust environment. Probably we discussed briefly that's for the organizations. And then zero knowledge proof. This is a new concept. When I try to get authenticated, I need to share my identity, either in some form. That means the other party knows it. The problem is, how do I know whether the other party is genuine or not, or is an attacker who has stolen mine? Then the identity is gone. After that, how do I prepare a new password or passport? How do I prepare a new driver's license? It's gone. Once gone, gone. So that, to address that problem, is much deeper. That comes under identity management access control domain. It's a new research area, goes into decentralized identity or self-sovereign identity. That means, for example, goes with the zero knowledge proof as well. Proof that you are over 18. I don't need to give my driver's license. Prove that you are a Griffith staff. I don't need to give my Griffith staff, but I can prove that. That's coming under zero knowledge proof or self-sovereign identity. This is under research at the moment, and some organizations are trying to use it. So there's a cost coming up with that.
So I guess not a weak link. Multi-factor authentication is a beneficial thing to have, but there are more secure if you go down the biometrics route.
It's a good point. I'll clarify that. In security, there's nothing called absolute. So it is, everything's relative. So if somebody says multi-factor authentication is a weak link, I will say, compared with what? What is the other option you have got? If you have got a biometric, or if you have got a zero knowledge proof system, self-sovereign identity, definitely I will say go for it. So if you say, look, I have a password username, that's definitely multi-factor authentication is going to be better. And then there's a lot more detail. I had to be careful. When you say multi-factor authentication, what is the other factor you used? What it says is basically more than your username password, you're using another one as well. Definitely it is better than a single one, but that's not absolute. What is the other one you are using? And it can also be compromised. It depends on how much resources the adversary is going to put. Prepare to invest on that.
Which is similar to what you said before when we were talking about buying cybersecurity systems from the shops. It's as much about how you apply them and what you do when you've got them as it is about what you buy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So finally, we did have a number of people who were interested in developing a career in cybersecurity field. Do you have any advice for somebody looking to do that, a particular pathway you might recommend to becoming a professional in this field?
Absolutely. Please come and talk to me at the university. Yes, sir. It's essential, I would say, for everybody, because everyone is online these days. And I would say if you can attend webinars or seminars, trustworthy, authentic seminars, then you get that information filtered through. Then you can look for more micro-credentials available from reputable institutions, including Griffith is offering on cybersecurity thing. And then the next level is certificates or undergrad, postgrad certificates, grad cert in cybersecurity, or even PhD in cybersecurity research. So at different levels, it's possible. And it's a good thing. It's a good investment in this digital era to get that, because it gives you a good picture, awareness what's happening, and you can make a judgment call. It gives you the knowledge required in this digital era. So definitely, talk to a university or institution which provides authentic training or knowledge or skill set. Certainly, one of them is Master of Cybersecurity here at Griffith. That's a popular one, and the grad cert in cybersecurity as well.
So getting the qualifications and then looking for entry into organisations that work in this field, or would you go to look for jobs in this area?
Absolutely. In both ways, I can say. It is there are a number of people who are enrolled into those programs and they are working currently. So they want to enhance. There's another lot, they are doing this program and they're thinking of starting their own business in cybersecurity or trying to get employed by somebody. Yes. And there's a severe skill shortage in the cybersecurity area because it's new and not many training places, not many organizations offering certificates or degrees in that area. So there's a skill shortage worldwide.
Right. Okay. So plenty of opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Muthu, for that most informative revisit of the questions that we didn't get to during our webinar. And there's obviously still a lot of work to be done in this space, but I guess having researchers and advocates such as yourself working to bring change does provide a significant level of hope for the future, because I feel like the internet of things is going to continue to grow, and security is going to become even more important as we move through the next few years. Thank you for joining us for this Alumni Extras conversation, and we look forward to bringing more great content to our alumni community soon. But thank you for today.
Thank you very much.